This is TWiT.
All right, tell me how I can become a cat.
So, excuse me, you have to use one of the 3 wishes granted to you by a genie to become a cat. But if you would like to, if you'd like to temporarily appear as a cat, there's a filter for that, sort of. Folks, if you had heard about the Texas lawyer who had to tell the judge, I am not a cat. It was all over Twitter, and I think in many other places, and reminiscent of the time that the Zoom dad had his kids marching into the room behind him. Then you probably know about this adorable little kitten that seemed to be just incredibly elusive. So who better who better a super sleuth than the one and only Thomas Smith writing over at Debugger to track down this kitten and explain how you too can be part of the fun, but more importantly, how you can turn the daggone thing off after you're done with it. Welcome back to the show, Thomas Smith. We are happy to have you here with us.
Thanks for having me back. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, so there was a kitten, and folks were looking for it in all sorts of places. And you have this great article kind of walking through your own investigation to track down where in the world this kitten came from. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey and where you eventually discovered the cat?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, as soon as I saw this trending on Twitter, I knew this was something Debugger was going to be all over. This is kind of right in our wheelhouse. And sure enough, within maybe an hour or two after this started to trend, I got a message from my editor saying, can you track down what was used for this, what happened here? And by the way, we need a draft in an hour. So it became this sort of all hands on deck, the whole team, 2 different editors. We were all working together. Trying to figure out what had created this incredible Zoom fail. And we figured out that, it was some kind of a filter. It wasn't a filter directly in Zoom. There are filters in Zoom. Our initial suspicion was a separate program called Snap Camera that lets you put Snapchat filters on your Zoom calls, but we couldn't find the exact one. So we created a tutorial about how you can become a lawyer cat, but not necessarily the lawyer cat. And at the last minute, we found this old post on archive.org, the Internet Archive, pulling up a blog post from, I think, 2012 from a chemistry professor that had been on a job interview when he suddenly transformed into the exact same cat that we saw, with Lawyer Cat. And so we put that in the story and said, well, this is our best guess as to how this happened. We have no idea the story behind it. And here's how you can kind of duplicate the same effect with Snap Camera. It was really popular. We got a lot of people really excited about it. But, personally, I didn't really want to stop there. I wanted to delve into it and figure out exactly what had happened. So I started to do more research. I looked at what technologies the professor had used, or potential professor who didn't end up getting the job, maybe as a result of becoming a cat, and found out that he had an old Dell computer, and he had been using a program called Dell Webcam Central. So maybe at about 6 o'clock the next morning, I went in my office, and I'm one of those people that never throws tech stuff away. So I have a bin in my office that's literally labeled archived tech, and it's just all my old cell phones and laptops and stuff. And I found a Dell Inspiron laptop from, I think, 2009, ultimately. I found it from 2009. And, battery was totally dead. I had tried to dual boot Linux on it at one point. So I had to, get it plugged into the wall, bypass my dual booted Linux OS, get back into the original Windows 7. Searched, found that it did have Dell Webcam Central, pulled it up. I went over to the avatars screen, which is what they called this. And sure enough, there it was. It was one of those sort of amazing moments where I clicked it, and there I was, transformed into the exact lawyer cat that we saw in the Zoom video.
Incredible. So this was very old tech. And that then leaves you wondering, was the lawyer using, because that's such an old machine that you had to find, was the lawyer using an old machine, or did they somehow figure out how to bring this tech onto a more modern machine that worked for it. This is also interesting.
Yeah, well, so Rachel Matz at CNN was also covering the story. Again, we had a lot of great journalistic minds, working together on this. And as I've said in my story, I fully expect the Pulitzer Committee is going to be calling at some point. But we were all sort of working on this, and she took the approach of going directly to the source. And in her story that came out yesterday, she actually did an interview with Mr. Ponton, the attorney who was affected here. And he said that in that story that he did have an old Dell computer. He had actually driven, I think, across Texas to use his assistant's computer. And it was likely an old Dell. And what I found in delving into this a bit more is that with really old Dell computers like my laptop and certain Dell monitors with an integrated webcam, this actually serves not only as your webcam software, but also as the driver for the webcam itself. So if you put this avatar on or you mistakenly, switch it on, it actually seems to apply the effect at the level of the driver. So the video feed that it's handing off to Zoom or to another platform is actually passing through this filter at such a low level that it's not like you can go into Zoom and press a button and switch it off. It kind of becomes your webcam feed. So as much as people were saying, why didn't he know how to switch this off? And, he must not have known how to use the tech. I think if I was appearing in court and this suddenly happened to me, I wouldn't think, oh gosh, it's my ancient webcam integrated into my monitor. The driver for it has this weird avatar, that's built into its program. I better go in there and disable it. And the other thing that I found in starting to do this more and more, and actually have the laptop with, I don't know if it'll fit in the screen here, but I've got Lawyer Cat here. I just leave it open now, and it kind of does that over in my office. But one thing I found is that it's almost impossible to switch the filter back off. There's no clear off button. You have to go into a different menu and then select a different setting in order to switch Lawyer Cat off once you've enabled it. So it doesn't surprise me that he had it on for so long. It actually surprises me that he only had it on for 45 seconds, because I know it took me probably a solid 2 minutes to figure out how to switch this thing off.
Yeah, that's troubling, especially when you're trying to have a very serious conversation with your lawyer. I wonder I wonder the age of the assistant that he had to go to, because again, it's a fascinating thinking about a filter that's that long ago, had to go to that computer to get it set up, and if it was something that got turned on so easily, and as you point out, difficult to turn off once it's turned on, which a lot of these modern technologies don't do. But let's talk a little bit about kind of etiquette in general, because I do think, and I'm curious, as you have lived through this pandemic as well, if you have seen the etiquette of these online calls kind of change over time, where at first we were all, suit and tie and everything in the shot was perfect. And then I don't know about you, but I've seen, colleagues kind of get a little bit more, some of them were comfortable from the get-go, but some more of them getting more comfortable as time goes on and displaying little faults in the, in the ether, as it were, where there's stuff in the shot and it's not as important. Do you think that human empathy is forgiving in this sense, where you made the joke about the professor maybe not getting the role? The lawyer and the judge, they seemed to, at least at first, kind of just roll with the punches. Do you think that that's a normal thing these days?
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of the video is where he says, I can just proceed like this. Like he's ready to testify in court. They're probably under oath as a cat if they need to do that. And I think that, that highlights one of the things that's so great about the video. And one of the things that makes it so funny is that they just keep going. They're trying to be unfazed by this. And, in one of the interviews with the judge who was presiding there, he said that, he really had a lot of respect for how everybody involved kind of preserved the dignity of the court, despite the fact that this cat had shown up. And, they didn't just start cracking up or anything. They just really kind of kept going with it. And I think that highlights that, even if you're in a virtual space, it's more about the behaviors when you're there. If you're in a physical courtroom, there's nothing about that room that makes it special. It's the way that people behave there. And likewise with a Zoom courtroom, people treated the situation with a lot of dignity, even though it was just such a bizarre thing to have happen. And I think that's, overall reflective of the fact that these virtual spaces that we're in are similar to physical spaces in a lot of ways, and that it's more about how we behave when we're there than it is about, whether we're a cat or what the space looks like. So I think that's interesting. I think also that, also part of why it was so funny, because they were just so completely serious for the whole thing. I think, one thing I've noticed as a trend over the course of the pandemic is that in the beginning, we saw a lot more, backgrounds, virtual backgrounds, people applying like beauty filters that would, kind of filter out and straighten up your face. And I've seen that really change a lot. I was one of the people with all of these Zoom backgrounds in the beginning, and I would choose different backgrounds depending on the call I was on. And now you can see I've just got, my room in the background. And I've seen that happen a lot more, where people have moved from kind of trying to create an impression that they're still in an office, or, putting the Golden Gate Bridge behind themselves, to just being willing to show, what their lives are actually like. And I think people are more tolerant of that. It's a big part of why a lot of people feel more comfortable doing it.